to J-Force English Training. I'm Jennifer, and today you're going to learn English through stories. We're going to review 4 different news articles, and through this review, you're going to learn a lot of advanced vocabulary, advanced grammar, and even correct pronunciation. Let's get started. Welcome to our article. Today we're talking about Rihanna, and we're talking about her performing during the Super Bowl. Did you watch the Super Bowl? Now, at the time of recording this video, the Super Bowl and Rihanna's performance is in the future, but when you watch this video, it will be in the past. So did you watch the Super Bowl? Did you see Rihanna's performance? Let us know in the comments. First, I want to clarify that the Super Bowl is the final competition for football. Now, when I say football, I'm talking about, of course, American football. Just in case there's any doubt, here's American football. I included this at the very end of the article because in North America, we refer to football, which is American football, and then we have soccer, which the rest of the world calls football. So I understand it's confusing, but this article is about the Super Bowl, which is the final competition for football, American football. With that explanation, let me read our title, Super Bowl 2023 Halftime Show. The halftime show is the musical performance that takes place at halftime. So 50% into the game, they play for maybe an hour, and then they take a break from the game, and then they have the halftime show. So that's why it's called halftime, because it takes place in the middle of the Super Bowl. I wrote the definition for you here. Super Bowl 2023 halftime show. What to know about Rihanna's performance. So Rihanna is performing at the halftime show as Super Bowl 57. They're calling it Super Bowl 57 because this is the 57th Super Bowl. And of course, it's taking place in 2023. So let's continue on. Any casual Super Bowl viewer knows that the colossal event is as much about music. So the colossal event is, of course, the Super Bowl. That's the event. Now, colossal just means really, really big. If you didn't know, the Super Bowl is huge in America. It's extremely popular. So that's why they said colossal. Colossal means really, really, really big. Keep in mind that in this context, big isn't necessarily referring to the size of the game. It's referring to the popularity of the game. So really, really, really popular. Around the world, football, soccer is a colossal event. The World Cup is a colossal event. So they're saying that the Super Bowl, the colossal event, is as much about music and commercials as sports. So they're saying, of course, sports, the football is really important for the event. Obviously, that's the reason it exists. But the music is a very important part of the Super Bowl. A lot of people will watch the Super Bowl. They don't even like football. They watch it just for the music, the entertainment, and the halftime show. And they also watch it for the commercials because the Super Bowl is so popular. Brands want their commercials displayed during the Super Bowl because millions and millions of people will be watching. So they'll watch that commercial. So these brands invest a lot of money into the commercials, and the commercials are usually very entertaining. They usually include a lot of Hollywood actors in the commercials or famous people in the commercials. So people will watch it for the music, the commercials, and the sports. So notice this sentence structure: as much about X
as Y. This is a nice sentence structure. The sentence structure is as much about X as Y. So my example sentence is, I learned as much about football as English in this lesson. So this is something you could say. Now notice in this sentence structure, the topic of the lesson is English. So it is the Y, but something that you didn't expect to learn about, you include first, which would be X. So you probably didn't expect to learn about football, American football, when you started watching this lesson. You just wanted to learn about English, but you're also learning about football, American football. So try that as an example sentence in the comments to practice this structure. So let's continue on. In recent decades, the end of the NFL, NFL stands for National Football League. The NFL season has evolved into an all-day, all-night event. Let's talk about our verb evolve. This comes from the word evolution. So when something evolves, it changes or develops gradually, which means slowly. So to develop or change, I'll add change, gradually, which means slowly. So they're saying in the past, it was just about the sports, but then slowly they introduced music and it became more popular and more popular and more popular. So it changed or developed slowly, gradually. And now it's an all day, all night event. Notice that all day and all night are adjectives. They're describing the event. So let's compare these two sentences. I studied all day. This is just your time reference. I had an all day lesson. The time is exactly the same for both of these. All day would represent the entire day from 9 in the morning till 5 o'clock p.m., for example. But this grammatically is being used as an adjective, so it comes before your noun. This is a noun. But all day, we generally include this after our verb at the end of the clause, because it doesn't necessarily come after a verb, because you could say, I studied English at school all day. So we put it at the end of the entire clause. But here, as an adjective, it comes before the noun. Let's continue on with marquee artists. Marquee, this is an adjective. It simply means very popular or well known. So you could say she's a marquee singer. She's very popular and well known. And that would definitely be Rihanna, right? Popular, well known. And it's an adjective. With marquee artists like Rihanna and others taking the field, to take the field just means performing. Before kickoff, kickoff is how they start the game, and during halftime. So that means that artists will perform before the game starts, because kickoff is the start of the game. This is just specific vocabulary to the sport of football, which is why I'm saying you're also learning about football. But we can also use this in a more everyday context. You can say, let's kick off the meeting with a summary of the conference. So let's kick off in this sense. Kick off means start. It's a phrasal verb that means start. And that likely comes from this football vocabulary. So at the start of the game and during halftime, which is in the middle of the game. Let's continue on. You probably know that Rihanna is taking the stage. So again, before we heard taking the field is where they play football. This is the field. I believe they also use that in soccer, the same terminology, soccer field, football field. Taking the field, taking the stage, it just means performing at halftime. The game is being broadcast by Fox. So this is just where you can watch the game. Watch it on cable or free with an over-the-air antenna. I don't know what an over-the-air antenna is, to be honest. Pre-game festivities. Festivities are just any sort of activities specific to football. So that's a good term. Just any activities. Activities. So the festivities there could be some entertainment before, there could be some different food you can eat, performances you can watch. All of those would be considered festivities. Maybe there's an area where you can take pictures wearing football equipment, funny pictures. So all of that would include festivities. You can have festivities before any event, before your birthday party, so any type of parties, weddings, even a conference, you can have festivities. And you could say, for example, the wedding starts at 5, but the festivities start at 3. So there'll be some activities organized for the guests before the wedding officially starts. All right. So the festivities start at 6 Eastern time, 3 Pacific time, with kickoff, so the official start of the game at 6:30. So they're only giving you 30 minutes for festivities, which isn't a lot. Okay, let's continue on. Considering that the halftime production, so the halftime production is Rihanna performing, that's the production. It runs between 12 and 15 minutes. This is the length of time that Rihanna has for her performance. So she'll be singing, dancing for 12 to 15 minutes. That's not a lot of time. Notice our verb here, to run. This is used specific with an event when you're talking about the time of an event. You can use this in a business context, like a conference. You could say the first presentation will run for 20 minutes. For example, the verb run is used specifically in a entertainment context or when there's a performance. So we can think of a presentation as a performance, which is why you can use the verb run. There is much to compress. So to compress is you take a lot of something and you compress it into a small amount. So they're talking about Rihanna's catalog. Her catalog is just her past songs. So all her past songs are her catalog. So in her 17-year career, notice here, 17-year, this is an adjective, which is why there is no S on year, because adjectives don't take plural forms, so we don't add an S there. Her 17-year career has spawned 14 number 1 songs. Spawn is a verb, to spawn, and it means to cause something new. So her career caused these 14 songs and 32 top 10 songs. Her career caused them to happen. That's the verb spawn. Here's an example sentence. Her success spawned many books. So her success caused many books to be written. Now, other people could have written about her success, for example. So her career spawned 14 number 1 songs and 32 top 10 songs. Top 10 is also an adjective. It's describing the popularity of the song. It's within the top 10 most popular songs. So she had 32 songs that were within that category of top 10 songs on the Billboard Hot 100. So medleys are a bet worth making. Okay, let's go back up here because they're saying that, remember, they're talking about the fact that the halftime show is only 12 to 15 minutes. Rihanna has many, many songs, but because of the compressed time, she may have to do some medleys. Medleys are when you take 2 or more songs and you combine them into one song. So she might sing just a part of one of her songs, Umbrella, for example, and then she'll sing the first 30 seconds and then she'll switch into another song and sing a little bit of that because fans want to hear more than just 2 songs. But in 12 minutes, you can probably only do 2 songs, right? So that's why she might do medleys. Now, are a bet worth making? When you make a bet, you're making a prediction that something will happen. I just Googled it, and the 2 teams competing at the Super Bowl are the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. Now remember, to make a bet, that is when you make a prediction about what will happen. I could say, I bet that the Eagles will win. Now, notice my verb tense here. I'm using the future simple because we use the future simple with predictions. And bet is a prediction. It's the exact same thing as saying, I predict that the Eagles will win. I bet that the Eagles will win. Predict sounds a little formal, like the literal definition, and bet sounds more natural. Now, you already know who won because remember, when I recorded this video, the game was in the future. So who won the Super Bowl? Share that in the comments. Was my prediction right? Was my bet right? Let's continue on. Even though she teamed with a pair of marquee names, remember, we already know that marquee means extremely popular. Marquee names in 2015 for 4 or 5 seconds. 4 or 5 seconds is the name of one of Rihanna's songs. And the marquee names, the very popular people that she teamed with, team is just when 2 or more people come together for a specific purpose. I'm sure that's obvious because we have sports team, right? And that's exactly what they do on a sports team. So those marquee names are Kanye West, obviously very popular, and Paul McCartney. Again, very popular. So Kanye West is a marquee name, or Kanye West is a marquee singer. Because remember, marquee is just an adjective. Okay, it is beyond doubtful that either would appear. So they're saying that yes, she did team with these very popular people in the past, but they're not going to sing with her during the halftime show. Beyond doubtful just means more than doubtful. More than doubtful. So it sounds like you're just saying very doubtful. You're intensifying the amount of doubt. So again, using our prediction with I bet, you might say, I bet that Kanye West will sing with Rihanna. Now, of course, this probably wouldn't be a smart bet to make because it sounds like everybody's saying it won't happen, but this could be your prediction. But going back to her roots is a possibility. When you go back to your roots, it means you go back to where you originally started. So where did Rihanna originally start as a singer? I don't know. Maybe they'll say. Going back to her roots is a possibility, which would mean a Jay-Z sighting on Umbrella. Okay, this makes sense because Umbrella was Rihanna's first popular song, I believe. So that is her roots. Her roots, remember, is where she started. And she started with this song Umbrella, and Jay-Z was on the song Umbrella. So they're saying now it might be better to say, I bet that Jay-Z will sing with Rihanna. And that might be a bet worth making. It's worth making because it's likely to happen. Her 8 times platinum smash with the rapper from 2007. Jay-Z called her a generational talent in announcing her as the halftime performer. Okay, so Jay-Z was the one who announced that Rihanna will be performing at the halftime. And when he announced that, he referred to her as a generational talent. Generational means that Rihanna represents her entire generation. So that's a very nice thing to say. So clearly, respect is there. That means that Jay-Z respects Rihanna, and the evidence is that he called her a generational talent. And that might be even more evidence to suggest that he might sing with her at the halftime show. So, since this is in the past now, did Jay-Z sing with Rihanna? Did you watch it? Share that in the comments below. And that's the end of our article. So what I'll do now is I'll go back to the beginning and I'll read the entire article in full. And this time you can focus on my pronunciation and practice along with my pronunciation. Super Bowl 2023 halftime show. What to know about Rihanna's performance at Super Bowl 57. Any casual Super Bowl viewer knows that the colossal event is as much about music and commercials as sports. In recent decades, the end of the NFL season has evolved into an all-day, all-night event with marquee artists taking the field before kickoff and during halftime. You probably know that Rihanna is taking the stage at halftime. The game is being broadcast by Fox, watch on cable, or free with an over-the-air antenna. Pre-game festivities start at 6 Eastern Time, 3 Pacific Time, with kickoff at 6:30 Eastern Time, 3:30 Pacific Time. Considering that the halftime production runs between 12 and 15 minutes, there is much to compress from Rihanna's catalog. Her 17-year career has spanned 14 #1 songs and 32 top 10 songs on the Billboard Hot 100, so medleys are a bet worth making. Even though she teamed with a pair of marquee names in 2015 for 4 or 5 seconds, that would be Kanye West and Paul McCartney, it is beyond doubtful that either would appear. But going back to her roots is a possibility, which would mean a Jay-Z sighting on Umbrella, her 8-time platinum smash with the rapper from 2007. Jay-Z called her a generational talent in announcing her as the halftime performer, so clearly respect is there.
Amazing job with that article. Now, feel free to hit pause, take a break, go get a cup of coffee or tea, review the vocabulary you just learned, and when you're ready, hit play, and we'll continue on with the next article.
Hello, and welcome to our article today. As you can see, we're talking about the navigation app Waze. Let's read the headline. Feels like Google is letting Waze die. Widespread bug makes Google Maps the only option. Now, in North America, Waze is not very popular. I actually don't know many people, if anyone, who use Waze. Most people just use Google Maps or Apple Maps for navigation. But when I was living in Costa Rica, Waze was the preferred choice. Everybody used Waze. So what's it like in your country? Do you use Waze? Do you use Google Maps, Apple Maps? Share that in the comments. Let's talk about this headline here. Feels like Google is letting Waze die. Widespread bug. I think most people know this because it's a computer term, right? A bug is a problem. And we use this specifically with technology. So I can't use this app. There's some sort of bug. So some sort of problem. I don't know what it is. I can't use this app. There's a bug. There's a problem. Or you might ask someone, can you help me? Can you help me fix this bug, this problem specific with technology? So you can definitely use the noun bug when you're using it in the context of technology. It's very common. Now, widespread, I hope you understand from the context of the article, but spread is when something moves. So we use this a lot with illnesses, the spread of COVID. That's probably how you've heard it before. So when something moves. So widespread is when it's a problem or a situation that impacts many people or many places. Widespread. So this is an adjective. So as an example sentence, I could say corruption is widespread. This is my adjective. Corruption is widespread in our company. So corruption affects many people or many different areas of our company. So a very useful adjective you can use. So they're saying this problem with the Waze app affects many different people. So let's move on to our next paragraph. While the number of alternatives keeps growing, with renowned names like TomTom and Sygic, I don't know what this is, to be honest. Do you? Sygic? I don't know how to pronounce this. I'll just say Sygic. I may be incorrect. If you know what this is, I assume it's a GPS style app. TomTom and Sygic also investing in similar software. Most people continue to run Google Maps and Waze because of obvious reasons. All right, a renowned. This is an adjective, and when someone or something is renowned, it means they're well known by many different people or within a specific industry. Simply, you can think of it as famous, renowned. Notice my pronunciation of this ED here. Renowned. So for example, we often use this with people, companies, places. So because I mentioned Costa Rica before, I could say Costa Rica is renowned for its natural beauty. There are a lot of beautiful waterfalls, volcanoes, rainforests in Costa Rica. Renowned for. So the sentence structure here is to be renowned for something. Now, something is a noun. So here my noun is its natural beauty. If you have a verb, your verb is in the gerund form. So doing something. So I might say, for example, Costa Rica is a noun for. Now I need a gerund verb. Renowned for growing coffee. Costa Rica has amazing coffee as well. Here I have a verb and it's in the gerund form. So why don't you share what your country or your city, if you live in a very big country, your city or your company, whatever you'd like, but your city, that would be a good one, is renowned for. And you can practice with a noun and then try changing that to a gerund verb as well. So practice that in the comments below. And let's continue on. They are both free. They come with state-of-the-art navigation capabilities, and they are owned by a technology giant that should theoretically guarantee a bright future. So these are the benefits that the article was listing about Google Maps and Waze, because here, remember, they say obvious reasons. Well, what are the obvious reasons that people use Google Maps or Waze? Now they've listed those obvious reasons: free, state of the art. This is a great adjective. Notice the dashes here. So when you're spelling it, pay attention to things like that. The dashes, generally for adjectives, if there's two words or two or more words, a compound adjective, we put dashes between them, state of the art. And notice it comes before the noun because it's an adjective, but you could also describe something. You could say, our new research facility is state of the art. Our new research facility to be state of the art. Now, of course, when something is state of the art, it means it has the most recent technology, the most recent everything. It is extremely modern, extremely innovative, state of the art. So you can try using that adjective too when you're thinking about something your city is renowned for, famous for. Why not share something in your city that is also state of the art to practice that adjective? All right, let's continue on. And yet, when I see this word here, yet, this is a transition word. It's an adverb, and it lets me know that there's going to be a contrast. So all of this is positive, right? So without even reading this second paragraph, I know that they're going to talk about some disadvantages, some drawbacks, because all of this was positive, and the word yet is used when there's a contrast. For example, I could say, I'm really tired. Let's just consider this a negative. I'm really tired. Now, I could say something more positive, more contrasting. Yet, I gave a great presentation, because it might surprise you to think I gave a great presentation when I'm really tired. So there's that contrast. Another example could be, I could say, I'm really tired, yet, what could I say? Yet, I went for a jog. I went for a jog, a run. This is another way of saying I went running. It's just a very natural way of saying I went running. I went for a run. This is a noun. A run, this is a noun. Run is a verb. So I highly suggest you add this to your vocabulary, specific for run and jog, because it's very commonly used. We also use it with I went for a walk, I went for a hike. You could also say I went for a bike ride, for example. So you're basically taking your verb form, which would be I went hiking, and you're turning it into a noun by saying a hike. That's something bonus I just taught you because I naturally wrote that because it's a very natural way of saying it. I'm really tired, yet I went for a run. So you wouldn't expect me to go running if I'm tired. It's surprising. So why don't you try a contrast in the comment section? I'm really tired, yet what did you do? That's surprising that you did it when you're tired. So as I said, I know that there's going to be some sort of contrast in this second paragraph simply because of that one word yet. That shows you the importance of including a specific adverb. It really prepares your audience for the meaning of your message. All right, and yet is not a surprise that things sometimes go wrong for absolutely no clear reason. And in the case of Waze, the most recent struggle comes down to mysterious freezing happening on Android Auto. Okay, so this is the negative. It's the bug. Remember at the very beginning, we are talking about a bug? Well, now we know what the bug is in Waze. So if you use Waze, have you experienced this bug that they're talking about? And what's the bug? The bug is mysterious freezing. Mysterious just lets you know you weren't expecting it and you don't know why. It's mysterious. Now, freezing is when you're talking and there's pauses. So it would be when you enter a destination in Waze and it's giving you directions, turn left, turn right, go straight, but then it stops directing you and it tells you you're still on this street, even though you passed that street 5 blocks ago. So the app is frozen. So notice we take the word freeze and we can use it in many different ways. I might say, I have to restart my computer because it's frozen. So everything stops working. My mouse won't move. I try to close a web page. It doesn't close. It's frozen. So our verb is to be frozen, to be frozen, to be frozen. You can use this with your computer, your cell phone, even your television. If you're watching a movie, it could just freeze, for example. Now you might say also, I think my computer has a bug. Has a problem, has a bug. I think my computer has a bug. It's been freezing all day. So you're using the computer and then all of a sudden it freezes, it's frozen, and then you restart it and then it does it again. That could be your bug. And notice my verb is freeze and it's in the present perfect continuous because it's an action that started in the past and it continues until now. And I put it in the continuous to focus on the continuation of that action. All right, let's continue on. First spotted earlier this year, the problem is becoming more widespread. So we know what widespread is. Before, the problem only affected 10% of users, 15%. But now if it's widespread, I imagine it would affect 60%, 70% of users, 50% or more, the majority of users is widespread. Now, first spotted, this means first noticed or detected. When you use the verb spot in this context, it means notice or detect. Noticed, detect. Let me give you an example using spot. This is a verb. So I could say, I hope my boss doesn't spot any errors in my report. I hope my boss doesn't notice, doesn't detect. Another way of saying see, basically. I hope my boss doesn't see. See because you're looking specifically for it. I hope my boss doesn't spot any errors in my report. Maybe it would be better to say teacher, for example. I hope my teacher doesn't spot any errors in my report, errors in my grammar, my punctuation, my vocabulary, for example. So that could be a good one. We also use this with people. You could spot someone. You might say, I spotted Sarah at the conference. So in this case, it makes sense because there are a lot of people at the conference, and then you see, you notice, you detect, because you're looking for Sarah. I think Sarah is here. Oh, there she is. I spotted Sarah at the conference. So it is a good one. For now, you can practice it with spot something like an error in a report. Let's continue on. Oh, we didn't finish this. So first spotted, first noticed, the bug was first noticed earlier this year. The problem's becoming more widespread, going to more people, with more and more users claiming they have no other option than to switch to Google Maps. All right. As such, some people believe this is actually what Google wants in the first place, as they think that Waze could eventually have the same fate as so many other Google products, including most recently our beloved Stadia. I also don't know what Stadia is. I don't know if it's Stadia or Stadia. I'm not sure how to pronounce that A, to be honest. Stadia. Do you know what this app is? If you do, share it in the comments as well. Okay, let's continue on. So here's where our headline came from. Is Google quitting Waze and letting it die? So by letting it die, it means that if you ignore the product, you don't try to improve it, eventually more and more people will stop using it. And if 0 people are using it, well, then the product won't exist anymore. And in that sense, it's dead, right? Is Google quitting Waze and letting it die? One of the many users hitting the aforementioned problem asked rhetorically. Rhetorically, when you ask something rhetorically, you don't expect an answer. So here's a question. How can I fix this bug? But let's imagine I say this question out loud and there are some other people around me and they kind of look at me like, what are you talking about? What bug? Why would you think I know how to fix it? But they don't actually say that. They're just like, huh? Then I could say something like, don't worry. It's a rhetorical question. Don't worry, it's a rhetorical question, which means I don't actually expect an answer. I don't want an answer. I don't need an answer. I'm just saying it out loud. So it's a useful word to know. Notice here it's an adjective. And here it's an adverb. It's an adverb because it modifies the verb ask. And here it modifies the noun question. I do see it probably more commonly as an adjective and it comes before question. It's a rhetorical question. So rhetorical, no need to answer. And I would say, I don't want, don't expect, don't need an answer. I'm just talking out loud. So I will get rid of that. Let's continue on. So in this context, is Google quitting Waze or letting it die? He wasn't actually expecting anyone to answer that. He was just saying it out loud. That's what rhetorically means in this context. All right, let's continue on. While I do understand why so many people come down to such a conclusion, Google isn't trying to get rid of Waze. The application is playing an essential part in the company's long-term commitment to solutions aimed at improving the experience behind the wheel. Behind the wheel, this means while you're driving. Because you as the driver, your position, here's the wheel and I'm behind the wheel. So we use this, sometimes you'll see advertisements. Now, let's say this is alcohol. Someone might say, don't drink and get behind the wheel, which is another way of saying don't drink and drive, right? So it just means to be driving if you're behind the wheel. Now here I notice they say come down to such a conclusion. That's just another way of saying so many people reach a conclusion, they get to that conclusion. I'll just say you can reach a conclusion. All right, and our final paragraph. Not a long time ago, Google brought the Google Maps and Waze teams under the same roof, specifically to allow them to work together on innovations that would eventually be aimed at users of both apps. Okay, so under the same roof, well, above me is a ceiling, but then on top of the ceiling, on the exterior, that's the roof of my house, right? So the ceiling is what you see from the inside, but from the outside, you see the roofs. So under the same roof means on the same team, basically. The teams were working perhaps at separate locations, and now if they're under the same roof, it means they're in one location. So could be a useful expression as well. All right, so that is our article. Now what I'll do is I'll read the article from start to finish so you can focus on my pronunciation and practice along with my pronunciation as well. Feels like Google is letting Waze die. Widespread bug makes Google Maps the only option. While the number of alternatives keeps growing, with renowned names like TomTom and Cygic also investing in similar software, most people continue to run Google Maps and Waze because of obvious reasons. They are both free, they come with state-of-the-art navigation capabilities, and they are owned by a technology giant that should theoretically guarantee a bright future. And yet, it's not a surprise that things sometimes go wrong for absolutely no clear reason. And in the case of Waze, the most recent struggle comes down to mysterious freezing happening on Android Auto. First spotted earlier this year, the problem is becoming more widespread, with more and more users claiming they have no other option than to switch to Google Maps. As such, some people believe this is actually what Google wants in the first place, as they think that Waze could eventually have the same fate as so many other Google products, including most recently our beloved Stadia. Is Google quitting Waze and letting it die? One of the many users hitting the aforementioned problem asks rhetorically. While I do understand why so many people come down to such a conclusion, Google isn't trying to get rid of Waze. The application is playing an essential part in the company's long-term commitment to solutions aimed at improving the experience behind the wheel. Not a long time ago, Google brought the Google Maps and Waze teams under the same roof, specifically to allow them to work together on innovations that would eventually be aimed at users of both apps.
Amazing job with that article. Now feel free to hit pause, take a break, go get a cup of coffee or tea, review the vocabulary you just learned, and when you're ready, hit play and we'll continue on with the next article.
Welcome to our article today. So first, I'm going to read the article in full and you can practice along with my pronunciation. So I'll do that now. Netflix backlash leads to another password sharing rule change. Netflix has retracted password sharing restrictions that were apparently posted in error on its platform. Earlier this week, the streamer had updated its rules for sharing passwords on its Help Center page. It noted that one's Netflix account is for people who live together in a single household. Netflix further specified that people who do not live in your household will need to use their own account to watch Netflix. The update was met with serious backlash, with a number of subscribers threatening to cancel their subscriptions. On Thursday, Netflix responded to the situation and said the information was shared accidentally. For a brief time yesterday, a Help Center article containing information that is only applicable to Chile, Costa Rica, and Peru went live in other countries, a Netflix spokesperson told The Guardian. We have since updated it. The Independent has contacted Netflix for comment. Since last year, Netflix has been testing out paid sharing in the 3 countries where an account holder is required to pay for an extra person, identified as someone who lives outside of the account holder's home, to access service. In Costa Rica, the added fee costs $2.99 a month. For people to have uninterrupted access to Netflix, the help document explained that people would have to keep watching something from their home every 31 days. If they don't, they will be asked to enter a temporary code in order to log in. Now, let's review the article in more detail, and you'll learn some advanced vocabulary and sentence structure. So let's start with our headline. Netflix backlash leads to another password sharing rule change. So to understand the article and the meaning, you need to know what backlash means. Backlash. Backlash is a noun, and it's a strong negative reaction to a change or a decision. So the headline suggests that there was some sort of change or decision by Netflix, and the general public said, no, we don't like that. That's backlash. This is commonly used with the government, but it can be used with companies as well. So you might say the government's, I'll just say decision, whatever their decision is, the government's decision, their policy, the change, the new law, the government's decision resulted in backlash, which means people were upset. What? No, I don't want that. I don't like that. They complain. That is backlash. We commonly modify this. You might say resulted in a lot of backlash, to just emphasize the severity of it. So you can use this if your company introduced something new and the employees are really upset about it. That feeling from the employees, that is backlash. All right, so let's find out what this backlash is all about. Netflix has retracted password sharing restrictions that were apparently posted in error on its platform. Okay, retracted is when you take something back. So they had these restrictions live, and then there was backlash, strong negative reaction. So then they took it back. They said, no, we'll get rid of it. We'll cancel that restriction. So to take something back, to take back a decision, it's also used with statements. So a politician could say, my opinion is, And then later on, he could retract that statement, which means he takes his opinion back because maybe he got a lot of backlash for his opinion or his statement. So to take back, another way of saying it is to reverse a decision. First, you say, yes, we're going to do this. And then you reverse it and you say, no, we're not going to do that. So that's retracted. And what did they retract? The restrictions, the password sharing restrictions that were apparently posted in error on its platform. Apparently is a great adverb to add to your vocabulary because it's used, this is an adverb, it's used when you're not 100% certain if something is true. So I might say, apparently we have to work late this weekend. Now, if I just say we have to work late this weekend, it sounds like a statement, so it sounds like a fact. This is happening. But if I add apparently, then there's some doubt. This might not happen. Now, notice my placement here. I put it at the beginning, which is very common. You can also say, you can put it at the end and you can say, we have to work late this weekend, apparently. Or you can put it in front of your verb. And in this case, it would be, let me copy this here. We apparently have to work late this weekend. So in front of your verb. And that's where they have it here in front of the verb. All right, so that's the different sentence structures. And this is a great adverb to have in your vocabulary. Let's continue on. Earlier this week, the streamer had updated its rules for sharing passwords on its Help Center page. Okay, the streamer, this is Netflix because Netflix streams content online. So they're just referring to Netflix as the streamer. The streamer had updated its rules. And this is for the sharing passwords. But then remember, they retracted it. They took it back because of the backlash, the strong negative reaction from the public, from the users. Let's continue on. It noted that one's Netflix account is for people who live together in a single household. Netflix further specified that people who do not live in your household will need to use their own account to watch Netflix. To be honest, I'm not really sure what this means. Does this mean that if I have a Netflix account and I want to go to my friend's house and I want to use my Netflix account at my friend's house, it won't work because I don't live in my friend's household? I don't really understand what this means, to be honest. And maybe that's why there was a lot of backlash, because it was quite confusing. The public didn't understand it. Maybe you understand what this means and you can let me know in the comments. Now let's take a look at this here. It noted. This is a great verb. It's used commonly in business writing, in formal writing, and spoken English as well, but in more of a business context. This isn't really a social verb, a casual verb. It's more of a professional verb. So it simply means to notice something. But let me show you how you've probably seen this, but maybe you don't feel quite confident using it, and now you will. We commonly use this with please note. Please note, and then you tell the person what you want them to know. What information do you want them to notice? Okay, please note that I'm out of the office until 3:00 p.m. So you might send this to your team in a chat. Please note that I'm out of the office until 3. So if they message you and you don't reply, they know why. Please note that. Now we use this a lot in presentations. You might say, note that the sales have doubled in the last 2 quarters, for example. So you're giving a presentation and there's a lot of information in the presentation, but you want them to pay attention to something specific. You can say verbally, note that the sales have doubled in the last 2 quarters. It's another way of saying notice. Notice is just another way of saying that. And you can add please to be more polite, or you can use the imperative, note that, which is used for directions. So that's a great verb to have in your professional vocabulary. Let's continue on. The update was met with serious backlash. So before I use the modifier a lot of, and here they're using serious. And of course, serious, it sounds stronger than saying a lot of backlash. Serious backlash. That instantly sounds a lot stronger. So you can imagine the negative reaction was quite strong if you say there was serious backlash when our company canceled the conference, for example. So a very strong negative reaction from the public. The update was met with serious backlash, with a number of subscribers threatening to cancel their subscriptions. All right, let's continue on. On Thursday, Netflix responded to the situation and said the information was shared accidentally. So they didn't intend to share the information. That would be the opposite. If you intend to do something, then it isn't accidental. So you could say that we didn't intend to share the information. So this is the same as saying the information was shared accidentally. Now, I could also say we shared the information accidentally. When you put it in the passive, this is commonly done when you want to avoid taking responsibility, because notice the difference. The information was shared accidentally compared to we shared the information accidentally, or I shared the information accidentally. It sounds like I'm more responsible or we're more responsible when I use the active form, and it sounds like we're less responsible when the passive form is used, which is why companies commonly talk like that. And it means the same as we didn't intend to share the information. Now, let's say the opposite is true and you wanted to share the information. You could say, we intended to share the information, and just that, we intended to share the information. So this is the same as saying, we plan to share the information. It was our intent to share the information. Okay, let's continue on. For a brief time yesterday, brief is a short period of time. It's another way of saying that. For a short period of time. It's more common, if you're using short, it's more common to say short period of time. But for brief, you can just say brief. For a brief time yesterday. For a short period of time yesterday. A Help Center article containing information that is only applicable to Chile, Costa Rica, and Peru. So only applicable to is saying that Chile, Costa Rica, and Peru, the restrictions or the information was for them and not for others. So they have different rules or regulations or policies in these countries compared to other countries. So that's only applicable to. And this is commonly used with rules or policies. You could say, oh, that rule is only applicable to new employees. So maybe there's a probationary period, but is only applicable to new employees. Another word we use that's very common is apply. That rule, so I could say the exact same thing. That rule only, notice the changes I'm making. That rule only applies to new employees. So something applies to something, a rule, a policy, a decision. But notice here, I need my verb to be. That rule is only applicable to. Because it's with the verb to be, let's say I wanted to talk about rules, plural. Well, first of all, I would have to change that to those for plural. Those rules are only applicable. That rule only applies. Those rules only apply to new employees. So, of course, you have to conjugate your verbs accordingly. So this Help Center article that was available for a short period of time, a brief time, wasn't for everybody. So if you read this from Australia or France or Germany, it doesn't apply to you. It only applies to these 3 countries. All right, let's continue on. The Independent has contacted Netflix for comment. All right, good to know. Since last year, Netflix has been testing out paid sharing in the 3 countries. Okay, so the 3 countries we know that it's Chile, Costa Rica, and Peru. Now here, has been testing out our present perfect continuous because it's an action that started in the past last year and it continues until now. So they're still doing it. Present perfect continuous. Now in this case, adding out to the verb test, test out, test, there's no difference here. Netflix has been testing paid sharing. Netflix has been testing out paid sharing. There's no difference. Sometimes that happens with phrasal verbs. We add an out or an up. We add a preposition, but it doesn't change the meaning. This is one of those cases. So paid sharing, whatever that is, in the 3 countries. So I guess they'll tell us now where an account holder is required to pay for an extra person identified as someone who lives outside of the account holder's home. Okay, so I guess if I want my friend to access my Netflix, I have to pay a small fee of $2.99 a month. So I guess it's cheaper than my friend paying $15 a month for Netflix. She can just pay $2.99 a month and have access to my account. I guess that's what it is. All right, and then they just identify what a extra person is, someone who lives outside of the account holder's home to access service. So in Costa Rica, the added fee costs $2.99 a month. I guess that seems pretty reasonable to give someone access to your account. What do you think? Does that sound reasonable? I don't know. For people to have uninterrupted access to Netflix, the help document explained that people would have to keep watching something from their home every 31 days. Okay, so I'm not sure what happens if you don't watch Netflix for 31 days. Do they cancel your account? I'm not sure. If they don't, this is what happens. If they don't, they will be asked to enter a temporary code in order to log in. Okay, I guess people didn't like that, and that's why there was a lot of backlash, which is the negative reaction. So maybe if you're watching this from Costa Rica, Chile, or Peru, maybe this article makes more sense to you. I don't quite understand the change that Netflix is talking about here because I haven't heard about it, but you did learn a lot of useful vocabulary from this lesson. So I hope you enjoyed it. article, we have a very interesting topic. We're talking about Britcoin. That's right, not Bitcoin, but Britcoin. So first, I'm going to read the article in full and you can follow along with my pronunciation. Britcoin could arrive in the second half of the decade. The United Kingdom is pushing ahead with plans to create a digital pound issued by the Bank of England that would offer a stable alternative to Bitcoin or Ether. While cash is here to stay, a digital pound issued and backed by the Bank of England could be a new way to pay that's trusted, accessible, and easy to use, UK Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt said in a statement. The Bank of England and the Treasury said the decision about whether to roll out a digital pound, which has been nicknamed Britcoin, would be made around the middle of the decade. Central banks around the world are considering whether to issue digital currencies as more parts of the economy move online. Unlike cryptocurrencies that are currently available, these coins would have official backing, which would result in a stable value and mean they could be used for everyday spending. Central bank digital currencies could make online spending more convenient, ease cross-border transactions, and boost competition among providers of digital financial assets. In a speech in November, Sir John Cunliffe, Deputy Governor of the Bank of England for Financial Stability, said that without a digital pound, a few big players could dominate and perhaps control innovation in payment services. But major details of digital currencies still need to be hashed out. Critics worry that the rollout by central banks could cause enormous disruption if people race to swap cash for a digital alternative. Another fear is privacy, since digital currencies would give governments new insights into how people are spending their money. Now let's look at the article in more detail, and I'll explain some advanced vocabulary and grammar topics. So let's start with our headline. Britcoin could arrive in the second half of the decade. So the second half of the decade, that would be 2025 or after. So not too long from now, we could have Britcoin. The United Kingdom is pushing ahead with plans. So to push ahead with something, usually plans or a project or a proposal, is another way of just saying advancing with plans, going ahead with plans, proceeding with. So many different ways you could say this. All of them are honestly quite common. One I hear a lot is going ahead with. I probably hear this more than pushing ahead with, but then we also have is proceeding with. So our preposition would be with, proceeding with. You don't say proceeding ahead with. In this case, it's just proceeding with. And then a plan, a policy, a change, something like that. So let me give you an example. You could say, my company is pushing ahead with the conference. So notice here, I used a noun. You can push ahead with something specific. So it means they're proceeding with the conference. They're going to have the conference and they're going to create more plans for it. Now, in our example here with plans, plans is a verb. I plan to attend the conference. It's a verb, but it can also be a noun. Do you have plans tonight, for example? And in this case, is it a verb or a noun? Pushing ahead with plans. It's a noun. And I know that because grammatically, the sentence requires a noun or a verb, but the verb would be in the gerund form because with is a preposition. So grammatically, this can't be a verb because it would be incorrect. We need the gerund verb. My company is pushing ahead with, and then I could say with planning the conference. So I need a gerund verb. Let's continue on. So pushing ahead with plans to create a digital pound issued by the Bank of England that would offer a stable alternative to Bitcoin or Ether. Ether is just another type of cryptocurrency. Okay, let's continue on. This is a quote from the UK finance minister. While cash is here to stay, so if something is here to stay, I think this is probably obvious, but it means it's not going to disappear anytime soon. I could say working from home is here to stay. At the beginning of the pandemic, everybody thought that working from home was going to be temporary, but now it's here to stay. Maybe not 100% of the time, but it's definitely changed the way that people work. So it's a great expression to have in your vocabulary. I think you'll use it a lot. And notice you need the verb to be with the expression, to be here to stay. While cash is here to stay, a digital pound issued and backed by the Bank of England. To be backed by just means that the Bank of England supports it. The Bank of England is responsible for it. That's backed by. Backed by the Bank of England could be a new way to pay that's trusted, and is trusted because it's backed by the Bank of England. Trusted, accessible. Accessible means it's available to many, many, many people. So widely available and easy to use. UK finance minister said in a statement. The Bank of England and the Treasury said the decision about whether to roll out a digital pound. To roll out, this is a phrasal verb. We have our verb and a preposition, and this is when you introduce something. When you make something available. So to roll out, to make something available, and that something is usually a service or a product. So in this case, the digital pound, that would be a product. And you're making it available, you're introducing it for the first time. You're making it available for the first time, which is where the introduce it comes from. Let me give you another example. This is commonly used by the government when they introduce a new policy or regulation. You could say they rolled out. So our government just rolled out a new tax incentive. They introduced it for the first time. And roll, of course, is our verb. So you need to conjugate that verb. Here, it's in the past simple. Okay, which has been nicknamed Bitcoin. So this isn't the official name. I know that because they use a nickname. A nickname is an alternative name. So my name is Jennifer. My family calls me Jenny. So that could be my nickname is Jenny, but it's not my official name. So an alternative name for someone or something. And we use this a lot with people we have a close relationship with, your family, your significant other, your friends. You probably call them a nickname more than their real name. So what's your nickname? Do you have a nickname? Share in the comments below. And just so you know, I don't actually like the name Jenny. I tolerate my family calling me Jenny, but I actually don't like that name. So don't call me it. All right, let's continue on, which has been nicknamed Bitcoin. So again, not the official name, but it's possible they do take that as the official name, would be made around the middle of the decade. Central banks around the world are considering whether to issue digital currencies as more parts of the economy move online. All right, so right now they're just considering it. They're deciding if we should do it. So of course, this is an excellent time to use our present continuous because it's taking place right now. Right now, they're considering whether to do this. So maybe your country is having the same conversation as well about having a digital currency that's going to be backed by your government or your central bank. Remember, backed by is supported by. Unlike cryptocurrencies that are currently available, these coins would have official backing. We already talked about that, to be backed by, to have official backing, which would result in a stable value and mean they could be used for everyday spending. Let's talk about starting a sentence with unlike, because this is a great sentence structure to have in your vocabulary. I could say, unlike the United States, Canada has free healthcare. So this is a way of saying Canada has free healthcare. Okay, so that part does not change, but the US doesn't. So these two sentences mean the same thing. Now I could reverse this and I could say the US doesn't have free healthcare, but Canada does. I could also say that just as an alternative. They mean the exact same thing. But I like starting with unlike because notice it's the most concise, which means the shortest out of all options. So when you use this, you can use less words but communicate the exact same message, which is always preferred. And this is a great way. But remember, when you use this, unlike the US, you're saying the US does not have or does not do whatever your second sentence is. So remember, the Bitcoin would have official banking, but other cryptocurrencies don't because they used unlike. So that's a really great sentence structure. I encourage you to practice that. Now, the result of that is they'll have a stable value because it's backed by the Bank of England. And they could be used for everyday spending. Let's talk about everyday. Now, notice it's one word. As one word, it's an adjective, and it means common or typical. So common spending, what would that be? Things like things you buy every day, like gas, groceries, expenses for your kids. Those are everyday spending. Your mortgage, your cell phone bill, things like that, everyday spending. Now, compare that to our adverb of frequency, which would be, I buy milk every day. Every day. This, as an adverb of frequency, means 7 days a week, right? Every day. That's a lot of milk. I don't know what you're doing with all that milk. I buy milk every day. Milk is an everyday purchase. So here, in this case, because it's one word, I know that this is the adjective, it describes purchase, and it just means typical or common. Let's continue on. Central bank digital currencies could make online spending more convenient, ease cross-border transactions. So cross-border would be from Canada to the US, US to Mexico, Mexico to France. That's cross-border. And personally, I think that is the best advantage of cryptocurrencies is the cross-border transactions. What about you? And boost competition. Boost is another way of saying increase. It's a very common way of saying increase. Increase competition among providers of digital financial assets. So these are all the advantages of cryptocurrencies, digital currencies. Let's continue on. In a speech in November, Sir John Cunliffe, Deputy Governor of the Bank of England for Financial Stability, said that without a digital pound, a few big players could dominate and perhaps control innovation in payment services. So this just talks about his point here about having competition. And remember, increasing competition, that's one of the benefits of having a bank digital currency, a digital currency backed by the bank. Let's take a look. Said that without a digital pound. Now notice our sentence structure because we have without and then we have a noun, which is great. That's very common. You can also have without and then a verb, but you would need a gerund verb because without is a preposition. So I could say the exact same thing, but I need a verb instead of a noun. So I could simply say, said that without having a digital pound. That could be an easy verb to add there. Without having a digital pound. Just remember, without is a preposition. So if you have a verb, it needs to be the gerund verb, which is verb plus ing. A few big players could dominate and perhaps control innovation in payment services. So a payment service is just how you pay. Credit card, debit card, PayPal, cryptocurrency, those are all payment services. And our last paragraph. But major details of digital currencies still need to be hashed out. This is a great phrasal verb. When you hash something out, you discuss the details of the plan. So let's say we want to have a conference, okay? But we need to hash it out. When is it going to take place? Who are the speakers going to be? Who is going to attend? How many people will attend? What will the price be? So those are all the details you need to make decisions on. So the process of making those decisions, the conversations back and forth, that is hash out, to hash out. So to hash out, this is a phrasal verb, to hash something out. The something is the details, and this is to decide on the details of a plan, a project, or a proposal. Now, you could do this when you're planning a vacation. So you can use this in an everyday context, so a typical, a normal context, such as planning a vacation. You need to hash out where you're going to stay, your itinerary, and your travel arrangements, and everything else. So let's say you are planning a vacation with your family. You could say, let's meet tonight and hash out the details. Now notice here that the sentence is in the passive form, to be hashed out. So let's use an example and combine it with another phrasal verb we learned, to roll out, which means to introduce, to make available for the first time. So the government is rolling out a new tax incentive, but the specific details need to be hashed out. Okay, the details need to be hashed out. This is still the passive sentence. If it were an active sentence, it would be the government is hashing out the details. So let me write that. The government is hashing out, the present continuous because it's taking place now. The government is hashing out the details for its new tax incentive. Now, hopefully you would hash out the details before you roll something out, but this is just an example to use both of the phrasal verbs in one sentence. Okay, critics, so people who don't think there should be a digital currency backed by the central bank, the Bitcoin, the critics worry that their rollout. So notice here, it's the same meaning, but it's a noun. And I know it's a noun because it's there for one. You possess something. You don't possess a verb. So I have my possessive. And the spelling as well. It's one word. So I know this is a noun. And it's similar to saying their introduction, how I could use introduce as a verb or a noun. So this is a noun. Their rollout by central banks could cause enormous disruption if people race to swap cash for digital alternatives, for a digital alternative. Okay, to swap. So I have cash, and this is the cryptocurrency. I'm going to swap. So I'm going to give you cash and then get a digital currency. I'm going to swap them. That's what it means. So it's when you replace one thing for another thing. I might say, just a silly example, I have this blue pen. I want to swap it for this pink pen. So I'm going to replace my blue pen with my pink pen. That is to swap, to swap. Let me write that definition: to replace one thing with another. And in this case, cash and digital currency. Now, to race, it means that just, well, you know what a race is. You go really fast, right? So once this digital currency is available, lots of people might say, I want it. And then they're going to swap their cash. That's what they think could happen, and that will cause disruption. Disruption is a negative thing. It's when everything is going smoothly, but then there's some sort of issue that causes problems. And that could happen if people race to swap it. So race to. This means to move very quickly. Move quickly to achieve something. Now, you might say, just to use race to, the government is racing to roll out their new tax incentive. So maybe they're trying to do this very, very quickly. Maybe they have a deadline. They publicly announce that it has to be done by the end of the week. So now they're racing to do it. They're moving very quickly to accomplish it, to achieve it. Another fear is privacy, since digital currencies would give governments new insights into how people are spending their money. So this talked about some of the potential drawbacks, the negatives of the cryptocurrency. And that is the end of our article. So what do you think? If there was a government-backed cryptocurrency, digital currency available in your city, your country, would you be interested in it? I think I definitely would. And mainly for the reason of cross-border transactions, I think it would make it so much easier. So feel free to share your comments on the topic as well.
Amazing job with this lesson. Now, what was your favorite new word from this lesson? Leave that in the comments below and leave an example sentence practicing your new vocabulary. And if you found this lesson helpful, please hit the like button, share it with your friends, and of course, subscribe. And before you go, make sure you head to my website and get your free speaking guide. In this guide, I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. And until next time, happy studying!